Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in life when you realize that the only thing standing between who you are and who you want to become is a single shift in mindset. Not a new year, not a lucky break, not a miracle, just one decision to think differently. And the instant you make that decision, your life doesn't gradually improve, it transforms immediately. Because the moment you change how you see yourself, you change what you believe is possible. Today, I'm going to show you the mindset that doesn't just inspire you, it rewires you. The mindset that turns hesitation into action, fear into fuel, and ordinary days into defining moments. Let's begin. Here you go, asterisk asterisk, a 600-word motivational speech titled A Mindset That Will Change Your Life Immediately. Written in the style of Simon Sinek, without headings, without her name, and without any ending statements. Asterisk asterisk, a mindset that will change your life immediately. There is a moment in everyone's life when they realize that the gap between where they are and where they want to be isn't defined by talent, luck, or opportunity. It's defined by mindset. Not the kind of mindset that sits neatly on posters or motivational quotes, but the kind that reshapes how you interpret your world, how you respond to adversity, and how you show up every single day. The mindset that changes your life immediately is not about becoming someone new. It's about uncovering who you were always capable of being. The most powerful shift begins when you understand asterisk asterisk, why asterisk asterisk you want to change. Most people focus so much on what they want, more success, more peace, more confidence, that they forget the fuel comes from why they want it. When you reconnect with your why, your actions stop being chores and start becoming choices. You start moving with intention rather than impulse. And intention is where transformation begins. Think about the people who inspire you. They are not fearless. They simply choose to move forward despite fear. They are not perfect. They simply refuse to let their imperfections stop them from trying. They are not gifted with some magical formula. They have clarity. Clarity of purpose makes courage accessible, and clarity of direction makes progress inevitable. The mindset that changes your life immediately begins with radical ownership. It's the belief that your story is still being written, and you hold the pen. Blame, excuses, and waiting for the perfect moment take that pen out of your hand. Ownership puts it back when you stop saying, "It's not my fault," and start saying, "It's my responsibility." Everything shifts. Responsibility is empowering. It gives you control over what happens next. Growth begins the moment you stop trying to prove yourself and start improving yourself. When your goal is to prove that you are enough, you stay stuck in comparison. When your goal is to become better than you were yesterday, you tap into an endless source of progress. You stop competing with the world and start collaborating with your future. The mindset that changes your life immediately requires curiosity. Curiosity allows you to see failure not as a dead end but as data. It shifts your focus from what went wrong to what can I learn. Curiosity removes shame from mistakes and replaces it with possibility. When you become curious, you stop running from challenges and start leaning into them because you trust that every challenge contains a lesson that expands your capacity. Another part of this mindset is discipline, but not the kind that feels heavy or restrictive. The discipline that transforms your life is built on commitment, not punishment. It's the willingness to show up when it's boring, when it's hard, and when progress feels invisible. Discipline is not about perfection. It's about consistency, and consistency compounds. It turns small actions into massive change over time. Most people change their behavior when they feel motivated. But the mindset that shifts your life immediately is the one where you act even when motivation is absent. Motivation is a spark, discipline is the engine. When you move even on the days you don't feel like it, you build trust with yourself. In self-trust is the foundation of confidence. The life you want isn't waiting for the right time, the perfect plan, or external validation. It's waiting for you to adopt a mindset that aligns your actions with your purpose. A mindset that chooses responsibility over excuses, curiosity over fear, and consistency over perfection. A mindset that doesn't ask, "Can I do this?" but instead asks, "Who do I become if I try?" This is the mindset that changes your life the moment you commit to it. Here is the asterisk asterisk 600 word continuation asterisk asterisk, starting asterisk asterisk exactly where the first part ended asterisk asterisk, keeping the same tone, same style, and following all your conditions, because the truth is, the moment you decide to shift your mindset, your world shifts with it. Not because life suddenly becomes easier, but because you begin to interpret every challenge through a lens of possibility instead of limitation. When you adopt this mindset, you stop waiting for inspiration to knock at your door and start creating the environment where inspiration has no choice but to appear. The next immediate shift comes from understanding that progress is rarely loud. It doesn't always look like breakthroughs or dramatic moments of clarity. Most of the time, progress is subtle. It's in the thoughts you choose not to believe anymore. It's in the conversations you no longer entertain. It's in the boundaries you finally set for yourself, not because you want to push people away, but because you want to protect the integrity of your future. When you honor your boundaries, you reinforce your why, and that alone changes the direction of your life faster than any external event could. The mindset that changes everything teaches you that energy is your most valuable currency. You start noticing where your attention goes, who influences your inner voice, and what drains or strengthens your intention. You begin to realize that the people you surround yourself with are not just part of your environment, they are part of your mindset. Their beliefs, their habits, their standards, they rub off on you. So when you raise your mindset, you naturally raise the standard of the company you keep. And when your environment elevates, your identity rises with it. The greatest transformation happens when you stop trying to control outcomes and start focusing on who you are becoming in the process. You stop chasing the result and start embracing the journey. You recognize that outcomes are temporary, but identity is lasting. When you grow into someone who is disciplined, intentional, curious, and purpose-driven, success becomes a byproduct of who you are, not something you have to force. Another powerful shift occurs when you replace certainty with courage. Many people wait for certainty before taking action. They want guarantees, assurances, promises that everything will go exactly as planned, but nothing meaningful in life comes with guarantees. The people who change their lives immediately are the ones who understand that courage precedes clarity. You take the first step not because you know the entire path, but because you trust that you'll figure it out as you go. This simple shift transforms hesitation into momentum. You also begin to redefine failure. Instead of seeing it as something to avoid, you recognize it as an indicator that you're stretching your limits. You understand that the only real failure is refusing to grow. Every attempt that doesn't work gives you information about what will. Every setback builds emotional resilience. Every obstacle trains you to navigate complexity with greater confidence. When you shift from fearing failure to valuing it, you start taking bolder risks, and those risks create opportunities that would never have existed otherwise. This mindset teaches you that patience is not passive, it's active trust. It's believing that the seeds you plant today will grow even when you can't see anything happening yet. Patience combined with consistent action becomes one of the most powerful forces in your life. You don't rush the process, you respect it. You don't force growth, you nurture it, and you begin to realize that what looks like slow progress is actually foundational progress, the kind that lasts. As this mindset takes root, something subtle but profound happens. You stop reacting to life and start responding to it. Reactions come from fear, past experiences, insecurities, and old patterns. Responses come from clarity, vision, purpose, and grounded confidence. When you shift from reacting to responding, you reclaim control of your emotional world. You create space between the moment something happens and the meaning you assign to it. And in that space lies your power to choose. One of the most transformative parts of this mindset is learning to hold yourself accountable with compassion instead of criticism. Accountability without compassion leads to burnout. Compassion without accountability leads to stagnation. But when you merge the two, you build a relationship with yourself that supports growth without shame. You learn to say, "I can do better," without tearing yourself down. You learn to correct your course without questioning your worth. And that balance strengthens you from the inside out. This mindset becomes the foundation on which everything else is built. It shifts how you think, how you feel, how you act, and ultimately, who you become. It reminds you that change doesn't happen when conditions improve. Change happens the moment you decide to show up with intention, curiosity, consistency, and purpose. Here is the next 600 word continuation beginning exactly where the second part ended maintaining the same tone, rhythm, and style with no headings, no names, and no ending statements. And as you continue to strengthen this mindset, you begin to realize that most limitations were never external. They lived in your assumptions, in the stories you repeated to yourself, in the beliefs you inherited rather than consciously chose. When you examine those beliefs with curiosity instead of defensiveness, you start to notice something remarkable. Most of them were built on outdated experiences, not current reality. And the moment you question them, you create space for a new identity to emerge. You start to understand that the stories you tell yourself become the blueprint for your actions. If the story is small, your actions shrink. If the story is powerful, your actions expand. The mindset that changes your life is the one that teaches you to rewrite your story in real time. Not by pretending everything is perfect, but by choosing the narrative that empowers you rather than restricts you. The moment you shift your inner dialogue from "I can't" to "what if I could," you ignite a spark that transforms the way you approach every challenge ahead. What becomes clear is that extraordinary lives are not built through monumental leaps, they are built through intentional repetition. You begin to appreciate the compound effect of small, purposeful actions. You wake up with clarity instead of confusion. You speak with conviction instead of hesitation. You walk with direction instead of wandering. You start valuing progress over perfection because you finally understand that perfection is static, but progress is alive. And everything alive grows. Another evolution occurs when you learn to separate your identity from your emotions. You realize that feeling discouraged does not make you a failure. Feeling uncertain does not make you weak. Feeling overwhelmed does not make you incapable. Emotions are signals, not definitions. They inform you, but they do not define you. When you recognize this, you stop letting temporary emotions dictate permanent decisions. You allow feelings to pass through you instead of allowing them to become walls around you. The mindset that changes your life immediately also teaches you to value presence. Not the kind of presence that simply exists in the moment, but the kind that participates in it fully. When you are present, you listen with intention instead of impatience. You work with focus instead of distraction. You appreciate your progress instead of constantly racing for the next milestone. Presence grounds you. And when you are grounded, you make decisions not from fear or pressure, but from alignment with your purpose. As this awareness deepens, you begin to see the relationship between your habits and your identity. Habits are not just actions, they are evidence. Each time you follow through on a commitment, you gather proof of who you're becoming. Each time you honor your word, you reinforce self-trust. Each time you choose discipline over comfort, you strengthen the foundation of your future. And the more evidence you collect, the easier it becomes to act in alignment with your potential rather than your doubts. You also gain a new understanding of boundaries, not as walls, but as protection for your energy, your goals, and your inner peace. You realize that saying no isn't rejection, it's direction. It's choosing where your energy is needed most. It's choosing which opportunities align with your purpose. It's choosing who gets access to the most valuable parts of you. And the more clearly you define your boundaries, the more clearly you define your future. With this mindset, you stop fearing the unknown and start finding meaning in it. The unknown becomes a space of possibility rather than danger. You recognize that every journey worth taking begins with uncertainty. You understand that discomfort is not a sign to turn back, but a signal that you are entering territory where growth becomes inevitable. And so, instead of stepping away from what scares you, you lean into it with intention. A profound shift happens when you start celebrating effort with the same enthusiasm you once reserved only for results. You begin to honor the days when you showed up even though you didn't feel ready. You appreciate the moments when you didn't quit even though progress wasn't obvious. You recognize that effort is the purest expression of commitment, and the more you value effort, the more consistent you become, because you no longer attach your worth to a single outcome. You start approaching challenges differently as well. Instead of seeing them as interruptions, you see them as invitations to rise higher. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That single shift moves you from frustration to empowerment. You understand that life isn't testing your strength, it's shaping it. Every obstacle becomes a stepping stone. Every setback becomes a strategy. Every difficulty becomes a doorway to your next level. As this mindset deepens, something extraordinary unfolds. You stop waiting for confidence and start building it. Confidence is no longer a prerequisite for taking action. It becomes the result of action. You realize that confidence doesn't appear before the journey begins. It grows because you had the courage to begin. And once you grasp this truth, you stop holding yourself back until you feel ready. You understand that readiness is something you create, not something you wait for. And with every step forward, you reinforce the truth that the biggest changes in your life do not come from external milestones, but from internal shifts in belief, in courage, in commitment, and in the story you choose to live by. Here is the next 600 word continuation starting exactly where the third part ended maintaining the same style, tone, and rules as before. And as these internal shifts take root, you begin to understand something essential. Transformation is not an event, it's a direction. It's not a single decision you make once. It's a decision you recommit to every day. You start to recognize that every thought you choose, every action you take, every belief you reinforce is either moving you closer to your potential or pulling you further from it. There is no neutral ground. You are either rising or remaining, and the moment you realize that, you become intentional with every step. You also start to appreciate the quiet power of patience, the kind of patience that doesn't weaken your drive, but strengthens your confidence. You understand that meaningful change takes time not because you're incapable, but because growth requires space to unfold. You stop rushing yourself. You stop expecting overnight breakthroughs. Instead, you trust the process because you trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, you become unstoppable, not because everything suddenly gets easier, but because nothing can pull you away from your purpose. Another profound shift occurs when you begin to see that discipline is not something you force upon yourself. It's something you do to honor the future you're building. You stop saying, "I have to do this," and start saying, "I get to do this because it takes me closer to who I want to become." This shift, from obligation to purpose, changes everything. It removes resentment from your effort. It adds meaning to your work. It transforms routine into momentum. And momentum, once created, becomes incredibly difficult to break. With this mindset, you begin to notice that you no longer tolerate things that once drained your spirit. You stop engaging in conversations that lead nowhere. You stop negotiating with your excuses. You stop allowing distractions to dictate your direction. Instead, you become more discerning. You choose your battles. You choose your priorities. You choose your future moment by moment through the choices you make today. You also begin to recognize the value of humility not as a weakness but as a strength. Humility allows you to remain teachable. It reminds you that you don't need all the answers to take the next step. It keeps you open to new perspectives and willing to adjust your approach. Humility keeps your ego in check, not by diminishing your confidence, but by reminding you that growth requires honesty. And the more honest you are with yourself, the more powerfully you evolve. As this mindset expands, you start embracing uncertainty with a newfound calm. You understand that uncertainty is not chaos, It's possibility. It's the space where new paths emerge, new ideas develop, and new strengths reveal themselves. When you stop fearing what you don't know, you start exploring what you've never tried. You become willing to experiment, to test, to challenge your limits. And that willingness is what separates those who dream from those who transform. Another shift happens when you begin to see that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act while fear whispers in the background. You realize that fear only holds the power you give it. When you move despite fear, you shrink its influence. When you take action anyway, you weaken its grip, and with every courageous step, you create a new reference point, evidence that you are stronger than you once believed, evidence that you can do difficult things, evidence that you are capable of more than you imagined. You learn to value solitude in a way you never did before. Not isolation, but solitude, the intentional space where you listen to yourself without the noise of the world. In that space, clarity takes shape. You remember your why, you reconnect with your purpose, you recognize your progress. Solitude becomes a tool for alignment, a moment where you recalibrate your direction and realign with your intention. And the more you practice it, the more powerful it becomes. You also begin to understand that progress demands vulnerability. Not vulnerability in the sense of weakness, but in the sense of openness, the willingness to show up without guarantees, to admit what you don't know, to try without certainty. Vulnerability is the birthplace of growth because it removes the mask of perfection. It allows you to be real. And being real gives you permission to grow in ways you never could when you were trying to protect an image. This evolving mindset shifts your perception of success as well. You stop measuring success solely by outcomes and start measuring it by alignment. You ask yourself, am I living in a way that honors my purpose? When the answer is yes, you feel grounded, even when the path is difficult. When the answer is no, you adjust without shame. Success becomes a feeling of inner congruence, the alignment between who you are, what you believe, and how you act. And when your life lines up internally, everything around you begins to reflect that alignment. You begin to see that the people who inspire you are not extraordinary because they were handed opportunities you weren't. They are extraordinary because they chose a mindset that served their future more than their comfort. They chose consistency over excuses. They chose curiosity over judgment. They chose courage over waiting. And you begin to see that you have the same choices available to you every single day. The more you live in this mindset, the more naturally it becomes part of who you are. Your thoughts shift first, then your behavior, then your identity, and finally your reality. You start becoming the person you once admired. You begin to embody the qualities you once thought were reserved for a select few. And you realize that the life you used to dream about wasn't unreachable. It was simply waiting for you to grow into the mindset capable of creating it.